In an ever-evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Kingsley Maunder, who has over 2 decades of experience working in the tech sector. Kingsley has been pivotal in driving digital innovation. His work has shaped major brands, and he's contributed startup exits, and he was in a venture that raised lots of millions of dollars in investment. As an advocate for practical frameworks and entrepreneurship, his book, The SALT Test, offers invaluable insights into navigating the product development landscape. Join me as I welcome Kingsley to the show. Thank you so much for spending time today.
Amazing. Wow. Thank you very much, Emanuel. I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. I'm interested to know how in the world you developed the SALT framework.
It was a bit of a challenge. Like, the title of a book is difficult. So the framework is actually called the Growth Map. But I like the story of Thomas Edison. I don't know if you know the story, where he would, it was a challenging interview process to get to work with him. And the final step was you would have lunch with him, and you would sit down, and if you would add salt to your food before you tasted it, you were not going to get the job. And because within innovation, you cannot make assumptions, and so you fail straight away. And that's very much what the book is about. Don't make assumptions before you prove them first. So in short, don't taste your food, don't add salt to your food before you taste it first. And that's why I called it the SALT test.
I love it. I often say no one is smarter than the marketplace, right?
Absolutely.
And so
we make mistakes so often.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Where it's like, the lack of testing or allocating and spending all the budget before you've done any testing. And then you're like, oh, well, we're 100% wrong on that one.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. I think that's one of the biggest risks that I try to help companies mitigate is that, don't fall for the assumption trap. Don't make assumptions and believe that they are real until you've proven them.
And did you have to learn that one the hard way, or did you come in with that dominant strategy from the beginning of your career?
As you say, over 2 decades of experience, some successes, but plenty of failures, and absolutely learned the hard way, the school of hard knocks. And one of the reasons, or the primary reason I wrote the book really is to help people learn from my experience. I could share it with people with this framework so that they don't have to go through and make the same mistakes that I've made over many years. I mean, yes, of course, I'm going to make more mistakes, but I hope I don't make the same mistake twice.
Absolutely. Well, describe a little bit about the process around your MVP. Give us the distinction for that and your process.
Yeah, it really starts with, we talk about marketing on your podcast, and I was told, as someone who's got a startup background, you end up having multiple skills. I come from a technology background, but I had to learn marketing. I had to learn sales as a founder. Yep. And I remember someone very wise told me that if you want to sell something, you've got to focus on 2 things, pain or greed.
Right.
And I think the pain is the one that just really brings people in. And I think when we think of an innovative product, we almost got to start thinking with the end in mind. And that is when we start, okay, how am I actually going to promote this, market this, sell this to people? What pain are we able to satisfy? And that comes down to, therefore, the first thing I ask people to look at. What problem are you solving? Is it a genuine problem? And who are you solving for? And so this is really aligned with what marketing teams will know a lot about. Solving a problem, who you're solving that problem for. And then once you've got that, is what's the competition? and the alternatives. How do people solve those problems? And that's sort of really the starting point.
I just think it's clever. A clever turn there, minimally viable problem. So nice work on that.
Absolutely, I think yes. I think you've coined it. What is the minimum viable problem that we need to solve? Because often when we're in a market with the existing corporation with product innovation, we there are so many problems to solve, and we try to solve too many of them at the same time, and just try to focus on the one that really needs to be solved, that'll have the biggest return at the end of the day.
Yeah, and then that often becomes like a focal point that then you can upsell or cross sell or build additional products in that line to support before and after that problem, right?
Absolutely. There's I was going to say two ways, probably three ways. The one way is you take that solution and you sell it to more people,
Right.
Who are sort of closely aligned, or you sell to the same people and you just expand on your product. Or the third option is you do both.
Yeah.
You expand with new markets and you grow your product as well, which is the ideal solution that you'd be looking for.
So classic J. Abraham theory, right, was upsell, cross sell, and then recurring revenue. But you have to have that first contact with the client or customer, right? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that too, about customer client and what that means to you.
Yeah, I talk a lot about customer and user, and particularly in the B2C world, that is often the same person. The person who's buying from you is also
Right.
your user. When you get into B2B world, that can often be different people. Whereas the person who's got the budget,
Right.
who's deciding whether to buy it, is not actually the end user. So you need to both satisfy both of those. And you build a product for the user. You want the user to love it, but you also need to have the pain points that the customer, who's the paying person, would want to purchase. Now, if we look at some solutions in the market which have done really well, is sort of Slack. That when they launched, they offered a free service, and then there's so many people within the business, so many users, I should say, within the business,
Right.
that used it. The customer, the paying person, ended up paying for it. But in other cases, financial solutions, it's kind of the other way around. You really have to sell it to the decision maker.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would often see this in the world of summer camps here in the States, right? Like you're selling it to the parents, but it's the kids who are the users, and you have to sell equally to both of them in order to get them excited about it.
Oh, absolutely, and that's a really good example, because it often is, when it's B2C, as I say, it often is to the same person, but when it's for children, you are selling it to the parent. But ultimately, in product, we talk about building a great experience, and absolutely, we want to build a great experience, but you still, in those environments, need to ensure that you're hitting the pain point for the person with the purse strings, with the money. That's the most important thing.
Well, walk me through your process from idea to scale, and kind of what's the high level of that for you, Kingsley?
Yeah, so the first one, as I alluded to earlier, is what problem you're solving, who you're solving it for. Then you look at the competition, and often when we look at the competition, we look at just other startups, other companies that are doing the same thing. But I encourage people to look at alternatives. So how do they solve this? If I want to build an example, I've forgotten someone's birthday, and I send them a digital voucher, and I'll be looking at paperless posters competition. But you need to think of things like WhatsApp, just simple solutions. Don't forget about those simple solutions that people can use. So that'll be the first step. Once you really understood that, you can then start to think about your solution. And you then build your solution around the problem you're solving, who you're solving it for. But what is also really important is what makes you different from what's in the market at the moment. And this really comes down to marketing. You'll know this better than me, because people have to we're lazy, aren't we? We're lazy. We don't like to shift what we're doing. So you have to have a really good solution something that's really different for people to shift to your solution. Those are the first two sort of phases that I would look for.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that especially in small business, the value proposition or that distinction about what we do often gets lost from the kind of the founderitis of how great we do it, right? And they're not able to message cleanly about why this restaurant over that restaurant or that roofer over another roofer, right?
Absolutely, I think that message should be pushing through, and that should be coming from right from the beginning of the product. And it should be baked into the product. This is the problem you're solving for who and why us. Why are they using us? And so often, as you say, as we grow, we forget that.
And I think closing that loop, right, from users back to getting that feedback loop of are we actually doing what we say we want to do or that we think that we're doing? And what's that loop like?
Yeah, you want to try and do it as cheaply as possible. So let's say, okay, I've got the solution. I believe, once again, these are the hypotheses, the assumptions that we want to test. And particularly nowadays with AI, we want to build something that's a prototype that we can test as cheaply as possible. We can approach those individuals. You might want to, create a small group of those individuals if you can, and start testing it with them and seeing if it does actually resonate with them. Interviews are amazing as well. I think interviews, you start off with interviews. Here's my target market, and you talk about the problem. You talk about how they currently solve the problem. And then when you're ready, you start to give them the solution and see if it resonates.
Yeah, well, that's so we've got kind of those first steps, and then where do you go from making it bigger and bigger?
Yeah, so once you've then got that, you've done your prototype, you've tested, as you said, you've got that iterative loop, and you get to a point where you say, okay, I've got product market fit, as you might call it, with this group. I'm ready to now scale. At this point, you may or you may not have tested some of your approaches to marketing. You may have tested it because that's how you got a few of these people in. But I would, the next step, once you've got that, is just say, okay, what are my goals? What am I going to achieve in the next 6 months, 12 months, 3 years? And then you start to look at the marketing, the go-to-market channels that you've got.
Yeah.
One thing I recommend in the SALT test is the bullseye framework. I'm not sure if you know it, and sort of it's been around for a long time. It could be modernized a bit, as in the channels you can use, but it comes up with 19, 20 different channels. It challenges you really to look at every channel and say, if you use this channel, what would you do? And then you would sort of narrow it down to the top 6. Of the top 6, you'd narrow it down to the top 3.
Nice.
And then you would experiment with those top 3 at the same time. Usually, if you're a startup, you don't have much of a budget. So you start to sort of push all 3 out. And I suspect you can tell me more about this than I can, being a marketing expert.
Well, no, I love that framework. And let me bend the beam back to you. And you have this product. It's called the SALT test. It's a book you've written, right? And so what are your, besides obviously podcasting, tell me about your marketing approach for the SALT test and you as a speaker, presenter, consultant, whatever the other things are that you're doing.
Yeah, great question. Yes, podcasting is great to chat. I always love chatting with people. It's a great way to talk about it. So for me, that was a natural, in the top 3. Because it's being sold on Amazon, that's another opportunity as well. So Amazon advertising, I've experimented with that, and there are also websites I've worked with who are also promoting the book as well on their side. So it's a bit of it's a combination of those 3. And just sort of experimenting where they sit at the moment.
Yeah. And then when did you publish the book? When did it come out?
So this is the 2nd edition. It came out in January this year. Just as
oh wow, and you've already got a second. Oh geez.
Yeah, well, as you say, I'm very much, I've built this with the product framework as well. So I launched the first edition, and then I sort of learned, got feedback, I've iterated, I've improved it, I've changed the model. And so for me, I'm treating the book as if it's a product as well.
I love it. I love that you have the tenacity to do that because it, for me, it's like once I finish the book, I don't ever want to touch it again. So that's interesting. And then, are you working with some clients on this right now, or you have some other projects that you're applying this to?
So the big focus at the moment is I'm taking the book and I'm making a digital version. So in the book,
Nice.
you sort of say, bring out a piece of paper, which is quite traditional, draw your columns and, each step. And so recently launched the growth map, growthmap.org,
Nice.
which is a digital version. So if you want to come in, you could then, it asks you each stage and you can then fill in the answers. So launched that, tested that, and found that if you don't have the experience in this space, it's quite hard to answer some of those questions. So it might be,
Sure.
Who's your target market? And
Like,
if you're not
everybody.
in marketing,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the usual answer.
Yeah.
So I've then recently just built a bit of an AI connection there. So, okay, who's your target market? Click on that AI assist. It'll go away. It'll have a look at your product, and it will then come back and say, recommend this as your target market. Now, once again, we need to validate that. I'm treating the AI as an assumption as well. I'm not treating it as fact. I think we'll get to a point where it starts integrating with some suppliers who can provide answers that won't need to be checked. I think that is definitely coming down the line. But yeah, I think that is the next step for this, just to really help people go through the process step by step.
I like that. And being able to build these dynamic workbooks is something that's a new phenomenon for books. And then do you see a next step after that, or are you just going to keep making that more robust? The dynamic website.
Yeah, it is. It's very much, what is the mindset? So who's my target market?
Yeah.
At this point, early stage startups for the growth map, growthmap.org. The book is for a wider audience. But the growth map at this point, really early stage startups who don't have significant experience, probably first time startups. And so everything I can do to walk them through this process as easily as possible is the main thing. And that is where I think the AI has been very helpful. And I think we'll continue to grow where you say, right, I found my target market, I want to do my prototype, and it will then take you through to building that prototype as well. So you can build and test and go
I love it. I think that's a great, valuable resource for startups.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to tell you at growthmap.org, I really wanted to see an About Us section. I wanted to see your big smiling face in a video, and I wanted to feel like I was there with you. So that's my 2 cents.
Brilliant. That's amazing feedback. I love that. Thank you. And that's why I do these.
Yeah.
That's why I talk to people so I can get amazing feedback. You're so right.
And I love it. You got like starting up with an idea, or hey, here, I've already got it going and need to get to the next step. I thought that was a really cool way to do that and help people on their process.
Yeah, I think if we talk about people who are already, let's say, in the process as well, often we sit there and we're stuck. I've been there before.
Sure.
More than once, that's for sure.
Yep.
And so I challenge people to go back a step and start to challenge your own assumptions. And you say, okay, you said this is your target market and this is the problem. Did you validate that?
Right.
So, that's, so it's either you're in the process and you're starting from scratch, or you're just stuck. And it says, right, okay, you need to challenge those assumptions, work backwards and challenge them.
I love it. Well, the SALT test is the book, and growthmap.org is the workbook, I guess, is what do we call this now? The work process.
The work process. That's it.
Yeah. Well, Kingsley, before I let you go, you got to tell me, what is your personal AI tech stack? How do you get work done using AI tools?
Yeah, I like the Anthropic. I use Anthropic, and I plug into their API, and I pull the answers from that. And then it's very much around the prompt engineering. It's just writing the right prompts, testing, pushing, and that's where I see within my space. And this is for a lot of people when it comes to prompting. Is if you know your space, you know the right questions to ask. You know if you're getting the right answer, and you can start to put it in. Of course, there is more I can do in that space, but that is what I mean. I like Anthropic for this business case. I think moving forward, there are more models coming out which are more specialized in different spaces, and I'll probably experiment with some of those. But for now, broadly speaking, Anthropic does the job for me.
Yeah, that's cool. I do like this idea that we're going to verticalize an LLM and have like subject matter expert LLMs that we're interacting with, right?
Absolutely. You know, it either Anthropic will come in and have partnerships with companies that will provide them with more accurate data.
Yep.
Let's say, for example, market size and target market.
Yep.
Or you will go to a specific provider who will be able to provide that information. Also, when it comes to the point of when you're starting to build websites through AI, there are better solutions out there to use that. So you will shift who you use based on your requirements.
Yeah, and it is just so hard to conceive of how fast that this is progressing. I think that's the biggest challenge that I have is, we're not that far from robot servants. We're not that far from every website being customized to us as end users. There's just some of these things that we've only ever dreamt of or read about in sci-fi books that are really imminent.
Yeah, and I feel that the rate of innovation will increase as well. Yeah. Because we can prototype, because we can test much quicker, because I can come up with an idea. I can go onto V0, for example, build a quick prototype, get into the market within 3 or 4 hours, and start to get some feedback and rapidly iterate. And within 3 or 4 days, you can get something back. And historically speaking, that would take much longer.
Yep. Years, protracted amount of time, typically.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Kingsley, I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for sharing the framework from the SALT test and growthmap.org. And if people want to talk to you directly, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. Always appreciate that. Always respond. Great to chat to people, so please do.
All right. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it. And hold on for me while I close this up, and we'll say goodbye properly.
Thanks, Emanuel.
Okay. Thank you. What a great talk with Kingsley Maunder, who has an important reminder for us, which is don't make assumptions, and make sure you clarify your value proposition and test market before you go and hit the ground running. So I hope you've found value from the episode today. I also hope that you go and test an AI tool or an AI process and are able to buy back some time for yourself to go and spend with your friends or family, or to get outside in nature and get away from the screens. It's Emanuel Rose, Marketing in the Age of AI.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.